Welcome back to the Taiwan Outlook. I'm Raymond Wu. In this segment, we'll continue our conversation with Ms. Bi-khim Hsiao. I'm going to discuss with Bi-khim about Taiwan's international space. Bi-khim, you being a leading advocate for more international space for Taiwan that is more commensurate with Taiwan's economic strength and overall national power. And let me ask you first, though, how do you define international space?
What I mean by international space is that Taiwan is accepted as a member just like anyone else in the world, that the Taiwanese people should have the right to participate in the international community, and our voices should be heard. It's unreasonable that we are rejected from major international organizations while we have the capacity to share our experiences, to contribute to the betterment of the world. It's important not only for Taiwan, it's important for the world. Examples such as the World Health Organization, that just shows that when there are global epidemics like SARS, China tries to put a political boundary around Taiwan to isolate Taiwan politically, but they cannot isolate a disease. They cannot isolate an epidemic. And these are areas where we need international cooperation, where Taiwan's involvement is important to the world, that Taiwan should not be missing. It's the desire of the Taiwanese people. And I think we do have a lot to share with other friends in the world. Our experience of democratization, our economic development experience, and it's simply unjust to deny Taiwan or the Taiwanese people that right.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people in Taiwan, including myself, not really happy with the international space for Taiwan. As you mentioned, the 23 million people that we have cannot express their views effectively without any undue influence from other countries to be represented in the international organizations and community. These are the things, of course, should have found a way to remedy itself. But you also mentioned just now that we need to look at the international political realities. The reality is that we have a big and not so friendly, hostile neighbor, right across the Taiwan Straits. So given that international reality, how would you recommend to this government and also governments in the future, in terms of this continued fight for Taiwan's international space? What would be your recommendations? Let Taiwan be heard, let Taiwan become more visible.
Well, the Taiwanese people are historically known for being very creative. We are a very innovative society.
Exactly.
Taiwanese people have also been very flexible internationally. That's why our businesses survive. The private sector is present all over the world, even where our politics are not present. And so certainly we need a multi-layered strategy. We need to be active on the political level, on the sovereign level, but I think we also have many strengths in the private sector, in the NGOs, and these qualities also need to be tapped strategically and well coordinated. I think our people will benefit tremendously from an active government campaign to have Taiwan represented. And the government should also back our people. For example, when NGOs want to take part in international conferences on global warming, on education, on climate change, on poverty, on health, our government should be there to support them. And that's why many years ago at the beginning of the DPP administration, we established an NGO committee in the foreign ministry. I know it sounds like an oxymoron. It's, NGO committee in the government, but it does reflect Taiwan's unique international situation where our government and the private sector, the first track and the second track, need to have greater coordination and be more mutually supportive. We also have a very active parliament. We have political parties that try to establish relations where possible, even in countries that do not diplomatically recognize Taiwan. And I think that's important, that in circumstances where we do not have the formal state-to-state relations, that Taiwan's voices are heard through other channels, through other relations, other connections, and through the voice of the people, which is the real voice of Taiwan.
Exactly.
So we really need to work out a coordinated strategy. Unfortunately, Taiwan over the past few years has been very fractured. The confrontation, the internal differences, the divisiveness of the political situation has also hurt our campaign internationally. It has taken away energy
onto other things.
Yes,
like international
we could have a more unified, a more strategically coordinated approach internationally. Unfortunately,
just didn't happen.
It's we are kind of surrounded by self-defeating internal bickering that doesn't let us get ahead internationally. But I think I want to say one thing that's very important for the current government, since you asked for recommendations. I think one worry on our part as a member of the opposition party, as a member of the DPP, even though I'm not a politician anymore, but I care passionately about the DPP and about our supporters and their concerns, their aspirations. And I think there's a general worry and anxiety now that there is not enough effort on part of the current government to build consensus on matters pertaining to external policy. There's a lot of unilateral action, whether it's towards China or towards our international strategy, and there's not a lot of communication or internal dialogue with the opposition party. And I think for a country like Taiwan that is divided, even though we have very few seats in the parliament now, technically or theoretically, the government can do whatever it wants without communicating with us, given the seats that they have, the absolute power that they have. But I think for Taiwan's sake, to move our society ahead, more efforts devoted to consensus building internally is actually important for our external policy, so that we have a more unified voice, so that we have a better coordinated voice, so that when we have to face these tremendous challenges coming from China, coming from other powers in the world, that our voice is unified, that it's so much more effective. And unfortunately, it's not happening yet. But I certainly hope that we can make some progress in this area.
Yeah. Well, let's go back on the NGO issue. I know you personally being very active in a number of NGOs around the world. You are still currently the vice chairwoman of international.
The vice president.
Vice president. Okay, Liberal International. Okay. Well, what can you tell us about your NGO experiences? How would those experiences help, Taiwan and other individuals, trying to bring Taiwan to the world and let Taiwan's views and voices be heard internationally?
Well, first of all, Liberal International is an organization of liberal political parties around the world. And I have been involved in this network for many years. And as you said, I was elected vice president of the organization, a member of the bureau. And through this organization of liberal parties or like-minded parties that are generally mutually supportive, we are able to build networks and connections with other friends, so that when Taiwan is in need, for example, when we need our friends to speak up for our right to participate in the World Health Organization, when we need support for Taiwan, when we are threatened by missiles, our international friends will, or these political parties, they will, because we have made an effort to explain our situation to them. And in return, they have developed a sympathy, an understanding, support, and friendship for Taiwan. And this is important, I think. The political parties are not necessarily all in government. Many of them are in opposition. But in fact, it's when parties are in opposition when they have a greater level of flexibility to speak out openly in support of issues that we are concerned about. Of course, when they do go into government, it's also very important that those relations are there, that they are understanding of our circumstances and sympathetic. In addition to this organization of political parties, in this global organization, I've also been involved on the regional level in Asia. And here I have to say that it's an area where Taiwan can help other struggling political parties that are fighting for democracy in their own countries. I've gotten very close to, for example, the exiled opposition from Burma. The Burmese activists fighting for democracy, or the Cambodian opposition, or other political parties that are fighting for basic freedoms, for human rights, for democracy. And, for Taiwanese, we've been through this.
Yes.
And even though, we have some challenges, as we all know, some imperfections in our democracy and our political system, but I think we have a lot to share. And so developing this network, especially being supportive of them when they are in need, when they are struggling, when they are in times of difficulty, is important for them.
Of course.
And of course, I hope and I believe that they will remember us if one day they are in a position of making decisions relevant to Taiwan's international space, that they would also be supportive of us.
Yeah, and I know the kinds of work that you do or you have done in the past are not very noticeable in domestic scene because, like you said, politicians, political parties are more concerned about votes than other things. But I think the kinds of work that you've done in the past are very important to build up the friendship, the network. For example, to expand Taiwan international space when the time comes, when these people, political parties do come to power, do make decisions that are relevant to Taiwan. And would you expect the relationship to, continue, even though now you are not in active, politics, and do you expect those relations to continue to flourish?
Well, even though I've been taking a break from politics, I have been traveling a lot, and I have been maintaining my relationships, my friendships with these many people around the world who have made an effort to try to understand Taiwan, and I certainly, in my travels, continue to try to express some of the voices of the Taiwanese people. Of course, I represent one segment of our of the DPP or the aspirations of some people, but I do, hope that my friends will continue to maintain an interest in Taiwan, even though I'm not in a position of government or I'm not in a policy
I think
position.
a lot of people that are watching our program now will agree with me that the kinds of work that you've done in the past became very important, and one day they will come up, in terms of helping Taiwan become more internationally visible. And when we come back to the Taiwan Outlook, we're going to discuss the incoming U.S. government, the administration, in Washington. How will that affect the cross-strait policy and also the relations with Taiwan? We'll be back in 2 minutes.